Welcome to Hagan and Fodder, a collection of musings, theories, and random stuff about media. This time I'm going to chat about Land of the Dead, the 2005 zombie film, which has aged incredibly well as it turns out. Land of the Dead was the OG zombie maestro George Romero's first trip back to the mall in over 20 years. It was the fourth part of his series that started with Night of the Living Dead and charted a zombie apocalypse, mostly around Pittsburgh, because the locals didn't notice when they're filming, because it's Pittsburgh. Sorry, I'm married to someone from Philly. Apparently Philly and Pittsburgh have a thing. But before I talk about this, I'm going to give you my views on the Romero zombie oeuvre, because at least a few people want to know. Night is a classic, Dawn is overrated, Day is underrated, Land is, well, we'll talk about that. Diary is good but baffling. I mean, Romero spent decades making movies charting the long-term history of a zombie apocalypse, and then he throws it away to make a pretty good found-footage zombie apocalypse reboot. And then there's Survival of the Dead, possibly the worst thing to happen to the Irish accent since Tom Cruise in Far and Away. Easily the worst of the Romero zombie films, and maybe his worst film overall. I really hope someone manages to make Romero's unmade zombie project someday. Twilight of the Dead, the sequel to Land, which apparently will show the zombie apocalypse ending and the social commentary, moving towards the zombies is akin to homeless people or drug addicts. And Diamond Dead, a musical about a zombie rock band. Unless I dreamed it, Richard O'Brien from Rocky Horror was actually involved in that at some point. Anyway, before I begin, YouTube will yell at me if I don't tell you that if you like the video, you can give it a like or a sub, and to make sure to hit the bell, even though it's a bell and it really should be ring the bell. If you really like the video, are able, and you want to help me make more like it, or even less important, then feel free to check out the Patreon. It's full of all sorts of rewards. It's like my brain, if you're a zombie. Or just leave a comment, apparently that helps the video in the algorithm, and I do read them, sometimes even reply. Anyway, Land of the Dead was very much intended to be a commentary on contemporary America, up to and including the War on Terror, which had been raging for the last few years. The film is about civilization re-establishing itself many years into the zombie apocalypse. A section of Pittsburgh is a safe zone, a microcosm of the old USA, with Fiddler's Green where the rich live and the poor living in slums around it. The rich pay crews of young, poor, stupid and desperate people to go on supply missions ever deeper into the wasteland to keep the whole thing going. Now, in most films that feature this zombie mission trope, say Train to Busan 2 or Army of the Dead, this is a one-off, people doing their best in a new situation and frequently failing. One of the truly great things about Land of the Dead is we get to see what it looks like when a society has lasted long enough, people have experienced enough, and the writers are smart enough that they actually know what they're doing in a zombie apocalypse. You get some of that in The Walking Dead, but only occasionally. In Land of the Dead, they have giant repurposed APC, the Dead Reckoning, which is sent out into the surrounding area. It launches fireworks, or sky flowers, to distract the zombies with sound and light, drawing their eyes to the skies so they're less likely to notice the forces looting, or fight back against them. Obviously it goes a bit south so the plot can happen, but just seeing basic competence in the zombie mission genre is a wonderful thing. Anyway, as I said, Land of the Dead's commentary on modern America included deliberate allusions to the War on Terror, in particular the Iraq War, which was at its height. The film featured the rich leader of Fiddler's Green, Kaufman, sending his crew of the Dead Reckoning into zombie territory to extract resources. Kaufman is President Bush, even though Dennis Hopper said he based his performance on Donald Rumsfeld.
Zombies, man. They creep me out.
The Dead Reckoning crew are a mix of US military and groups like Blackwater, and the supplies they're extracting to keep Fiddler's Green running are a metaphor for oil. Even the sky flowers deliberately evoke the shock and awe missile barrages of the Iraq War. But what if I said that this metaphor, which is kind of imperfect, works so much better now than it did then? For instance, the film ends with the zombies working together and fighting back, destroying Fiddler's Green. Now, the destruction of the human's base is nothing new in Romero zombie films, and they've been charting the zombies' increasing intelligence for a couple of films now, so the ending makes sense narratively, just not as part of the overall metaphor as intended, because Iraq was never a threat to the USA. But if we look at this film as an analogy for the Trump, not Bush era, it works perfectly. I'll get back to the ending, but for instance, in Land of the Dead, we have the character Cholo, played by John Leguizamo, trying to buy his way into the upper echelons of society, but Kaufman won't accept him, mostly because of thinly veiled racism.
Oh, with the 20 grand you owe me from last night, I got enough for my own place.
There's a very long waiting list.
And then you're gonna say I'm not good enough?
And not so thinly veiled racism.
Fucking spick bastard.
When the Bush-era Republicans, at least on the top level, were desperate to not be seen as racist, and were all about promoting token ethnic minorities to high levels of power. Compare that to the current Trump administration, who apparently denied non-white officers owed promotions. Now let's remember that Trump has got in trouble for not letting non-white people live in his buildings. Kaufman himself doesn't even vaguely resemble Bush or Donald Rumsfeld, but he's a rich asshole who owns a big chunk of the city and runs on raw animal cunning. He's a perfect, slightly younger Trump analogy. He even has a red tie and enjoys sitting on top of his skyscraper, watching over his domain. And the Iraq War analogy works so much better as an Iran War analogy. Here we have the zombies minding their own business, living their lives, and getting fucked with by the force of Fiddler's Green over and over and over again, until they finally snap and retaliate. Iran didn't attack the USA, it signed a deal saying that it wouldn't get nukes and it stuck to it. Then Trump ejected the deal and they still didn't make a nuke. Then they only barely reacted to being attacked last year, and they're only now actually fighting back. And the force of Fiddler's Green discover, much to their horror, that they're not only capable of losing hard, but the zombies will absorb far more damage than them and keep kicking. That they have the ability to destroy everything that they've built. Closing the Strait of Hormuz isn't quite the same as storming the castle, but if it goes on long enough, the effect might be similar. Like the US military in the current war, the forces of Fiddler's Green are experts at fighting the last war. They've a long history of dominating, and of all the confidence that comes from that. But they've not had to use their imagination in a long time, and when they face an enemy doing the genuinely unexpected, they flounder. The unexpected in Land of the Dead being basic intelligence, but also atypical tactics. Atypical tactics like Iran's, also involving a body of water. The zombies bypass the heavily defended bridges and march into the safe zone by walking under the river. And Big Daddy, the zombie leader, is a black man, possibly originally an immigrant. And what were the largest and most charged protests against the Trump administrations? BLM and the anti-ICE protests. The spark that kicked off Big Daddy's revolt was seeing violence done to members of his community, and he responded by filling the streets with angry, literal resistance. It's like Romero's writing the allegory inspired by today. Then again, all this demonstrates is that America's been on this particular path for a very long time now, which is just depressing. Possibly the most subversive modern-day allegory is the fact that the narrative spends most of its time following the people in the city and their dramas and conflicts, and the true existential issue, the zombies, is only periodically cut away to. Compare this to all the killing happening in the war and how a bunch of people, and even more media from the US, will insist on centering their issues. Calmly talking about prices and how the upcoming elections will change this, while people die. And well-meaning people telling other people who are in actual danger that they don't agree with their government, as though that ultimately matters. My analogy for this is that a mouse doesn't care how a cat's fleas feel about the hunt, and you wouldn't expect them to. Now, I don't mean to insult Americans who disagree with their government or oppose the war. Those are both very good things. My point is that, like the dramas of the human characters in Land of the Dead, it ultimately doesn't matter in the face of bigger events. It's like Romero decided to do a blistering takedown of the USA today, from economics to the imperialism, to the racism, to the love of bloody sports, to the classism, and yes, to the American tendency to center their feelings over the objectively important thing and its real-world effects. Now that's a universal human thing, we all do that, but it's exacerbated by privilege. And when it comes to countries, the USA has been very privileged for a very long time. Got kind of depressing there, sorry. Anyway, Land of the Dead is a solid film, which got unfairly pilloried as one of the lesser Romero zombie films, but it's definitely the one that's aged best. Or at least the one that's aged the most interesting. Give it a rewatch, it might surprise you. And I'll see you next time for some more headcanon fodder.